I turned 58 that morning in Boise, Idaho, and I woke up already dressed in purpose. My hands moved like they had a mind of their own, folding napkins, flipping waffles, warming plates, muscle memory carved from decades of mornings, just like this one. A mother never stops preparing for people who stopped showing up. It was a Thursday, gray and quiet. The kind of morning where the sky doesn't really commit to being overcast or clear, just floats. I lit the cinnamon candle Amber liked when she was a teenager. Brewed 2 cups of coffee. One with hazelnut creamer, just how she liked it, and set the table with care I didn't admit was ceremonial. It had been our little ritual, birthday breakfast at Mom's. I thought she still cared. I really did. I checked the time. 9:30, she had said morning, but Amber never meant anything by her words. They were slippery, like soap in a wet sink. At 9:47, her car pulled up. I watched her through the lace curtains. She stepped out in white sneakers and a tan jacket, her phone held high in selfie mode. Recording already. She opened the front door without knocking. "Smile, Mom." "Birthday vlog," she chirped, walking in like a weather forecast, all breezy, no substance. I smiled. Automatically. My lips moved before my thoughts caught up. I hadn't put on makeup, but I wiped my hands on my apron and stood straighter. She panned the phone over the breakfast table. "Guys, look. The classic 90s breakfast is back. Waffles, syrup, and real butter. So vintage." It wasn't vintage. It was what she'd asked for every year from age 6 to 23. Her first words to me that morning weren't "happy birthday" or "how are you feeling?" Just "smile." She handed me a bouquet. Grocery store flowers, the kind on sale for $5.99 with the petals already browning at the tips. She held them out like a microphone, like I was supposed to say something. Instead, she turned the camera on herself. "Taking Mom out for a special lunch, stay tuned." I stood in my own kitchen, holding the dying flowers, and tried to find footing in this hologram of affection. "Where are we going?" I asked, trying to sound cheerful. She waved the question off. "Just come on, you'll see." Tyler was already in the car, engine running. He didn't get out to help me with my coat or open the door. He just looked straight ahead, gripping the wheel like a chauffeur. I got in the back. No one asked me where I wanted to sit. I thought we were heading to that cafe downtown, the one with the green awnings and croissant sandwiches I liked. But we turned the opposite direction. Then farther out. Past downtown. Into the trees. "Where are we?" "You'll see, Mom," Amber said, her tone tight now. She was watching herself in the phone reflection, touching her lip gloss. Tyler didn't speak. He turned onto a long, cracked driveway with a sign I'll never forget, even if age takes everything else. Cedar Grove Assisted Living. My blood turned to stone. "Amber, no. It's not like that," she said quickly, not looking at me. "It's just for now. You've been having issues." "What issues?" "You forgot my birthday last year." "I had the flu." "You left the oven on in February." "For 5 minutes." "Mom," she said, pulling out her phone again, "it's not a punishment. It's safety. You always said you didn't want to be a burden." A burden. The word landed like a slap. I opened my mouth, but Tyler had already parked. He popped the trunk. I heard him lifting something heavy, my green suitcase, from the attic. I hadn't packed it. No one told me to. I got out of the car. The place looked like a motel that had stopped pretending. Beige bricks, metal handrails, one of those signs with changeable letters that read, "Bingo night canceled due to COVID." My legs wouldn't move. Amber linked her arm through mine. "Please don't make this harder." Inside, the air smelled like lemon disinfectant and something overcooked. I saw wheelchairs. Someone coughed in the distance. A TV blared a soap opera no one was watching. A woman behind the desk smiled like she had been trained to show teeth without warmth. "New resident," Amber said, cheerful. "Nancy Bell. Power of attorney is here." She handed over paperwork. The woman nodded. "Room 108B. We'll have someone escort her." "She prefers waffles in the morning," Amber said, as if describing a rescued pet. "No bananas. She hates bananas." I stood there mute, like an exhibit. "I didn't agree to this," I whispered. Amber smiled tightly. "You don't need to, Mom." That's what POA is for. The nurse arrived, all pastels and perfume. Come with me, sweetheart. Let's get you settled. Don't call me sweetheart, I said, but my voice came out small. They wheeled my suitcase while I walked behind them like a guest in someone else's story. Room 108B had beige walls and one window. The view? A brick wall, 4 feet away. You could barely tell if it was day or night. The bed had a plastic mattress. There was a dresser. A laminated menu. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched Amber film the room, still live on social media. Super cozy, right? It's like a mini resort, she said to her followers. She turned the camera back to me. Say hi, Mom. Tell them you're excited. I stared at her. Turn that off. Jesus, Mom. Don't be such a downer. Then she kissed my cheek, cold, absent, and left. Tyler didn't say goodbye. He didn't even look back. I sat in silence. At 9:12 that night, she posted a story. Putting Mom somewhere she can finally rest. Orange heart sparkles. Thousands of likes. Thousands of heart emojis. Comments like, she's so lucky to have you. You're such a good daughter. I wish I could do this for my mom. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. I stared at the wilted bouquet she had left on my dresser. One petal dropped. Then another. They hadn't brought me here for care. They brought me here for containment. I wasn't being looked after. I was being filed away. Filed. Forgotten. Deleted. They cut my phone 2 days after I arrived. No warning. No explanation. Just a nurse, younger than my purse, who walked in with a clipboard and said, your daughter requested we disable personal devices for your safety. For my what? I asked. Safety, sweetheart, she repeated. That word again. I had been in Cedar Grove for 48 hours, and already I was a sweetheart without a phone, a room number instead of a person. No one asked what I wanted. My wishes existed only on paper now, papers Amber had signed. At first, I tried to be rational. I explained to the staff that I wasn't here by choice, that there had been a mistake, that I didn't need round-the-clock care. They nodded politely and wrote notes in my file. I asked for access to my phone. They said I was on digital restriction per the POA. I asked for a newspaper. They handed me a community newsletter, with jokes about prune juice and photos from last month's bingo night. I cried once. Quietly, behind the door, when my roommate was gone. Norma. She was 84, legally blind, and snored like a motorboat. She thought I was her cousin for the first 3 days. The only time she spoke clearly was to say, 2 weeks since my son called. Then 3. Then 4. She had a calendar on the wall where she drew tally marks like a prisoner. I envied her. At least she wasn't filming her mother for likes. The meals came on trays. Beige chicken, beige rice, something green pretending to be broccoli. The kind of food that doesn't offend, inspire, or nourish. I asked once if I could use the kitchen. They looked horrified. Residents aren't permitted access to appliances. I started doing crosswords to keep my mind sharp. I wrote letters to myself and never mailed them. I read old Danielle Steele paperbacks from the shared shelf and underlined the parts where the women woke up. Where they got angry. 3 weeks in, Amber came back. She swept in like royalty, loud, perfumed, dressed in neutral tones like a lifestyle guru. Tyler came with her, always silent, his arms folded like he was guarding something. Mom, she said, arms wide. You look great. I didn't answer. She had brought an audience, 3 nurses and a maintenance worker, probably called to witness whatever little performance she had planned. They walked me to the cafeteria. The same beige meal was waiting. Chicken. Mashed potatoes with lumps. Canned carrots. I sat. She stood. She picked up the fork, poked at the food, and laughed. Oh my God. Mom, you still cook like it's the 90s. The staff chuckled. Polite, unsure. Amber smirked. People eat real food now. You know, plant-based, gluten-free, farm-to-table? This is like eating at a retirement party from 1995. I looked at her. Really looked. Her eyes glittered with something that wasn't love. It was amusement. Performance. I didn't speak. Just nodded slowly. When they left, I went back to my room. My hands shook as I opened the desk drawer. I had asked a nurse for access to a delivery app weeks ago, and she said no outside vendors. But I remembered something. In the community center by the garden, there was a staff computer. Unsupervised. Unsecured. That night, after dinner, I waited until the hallway cleared. I slipped into the lounge in my robe and used the old desktop to print something. A restaurant menu. From the place Amber liked, trendy, expensive, and dripping with modernity. I ordered food under her name. Paid in advance with the prepaid card I'd hidden in my shoe. Then I left the menu and receipt on the table in my room. I printed a note in large letters. Since you prefer modern food, dinner's waiting at home. The next morning, the nurses were buzzing. Someone had unauthorized delivery listed on the report sheet. They asked questions. I said nothing. Just smiled like I didn't know what they meant. That little rebellion was quiet. But it split something inside me. For years I had made excuses. Amber's stress. Her job. Her generation. Her needs. I'd forgiven the coldness, the sarcasm, the absences. I believed her cruelty was unintentional. But this wasn't just neglect. It was mockery. It was choosing to humiliate me publicly, performatively, like content. And in that moment, sitting on that plastic chair under fluorescent lights, with fake mashed potatoes and 3 witnesses, something inside me died. Not the part that loved her. That was already gone. The part that still made excuses. Her name was Layla, and she had eyes like questions. She came on the night shift 2 weeks after the cafeteria incident, when I'd finally stopped asking about my phone. She was younger than most, maybe mid-20s, with tight braids pulled under a lavender cap and a walk that said she didn't scare easy. She took my blood pressure in silence, her gloved hands gentle but firm. She didn't call me sweetheart. Didn't speak to me like I was a confused toddler. That alone earned my trust. "You don't belong here," she whispered, slipping the cuff off my arm. I looked at her, startled. "I read your file," she said. "You've got full cognition, no diagnosis, no incidents. They say I'm confused." "You're not," she said. "They are." She came back later with something in her hand, a folded piece of paper. "From Mr. Henry's things," she whispered. "He passed 2 weeks ago. No family claimed his box." I unfolded it. A lottery ticket. Faded, wrinkled, but unmarked. "Why are you giving me this?" She shrugged. Felt like luck owed somebody. The numbers were a blur, smudged by time. I almost tossed it. But curiosity wins more than hope ever does. At 3 a.m., I crept to the staff computer in the lounge. It took me 3 tries to load the lottery website. When I typed in the numbers, I half smiled, ready to laugh at myself. Then I stopped breathing. $2. 6 million. The screen confirmed it. The date matched the last draw of the year. An unclaimed jackpot. The numbers glowed like a dare. I looked behind me. No one. I didn't feel joy. I felt terror. I printed the results. Folded them neatly. Walked back to my room in silence. My roommate snored softly, unaware that the woman beside her had just stepped through a door and could never go back. If Amber found out, if Tyler even suspected, they'd finish the job. They wouldn't erase me slowly anymore. They'd do it all at once. I needed help. Layla returned at sunrise, the circles under her eyes darker than before. "I need a lawyer," I whispered. She blinked. "Excuse me? I need someone I can trust." Layla exhaled. "There's a volunteer attorney. Comes in once a month. Works with seniors. Quiet. Kind. His name's Eric Hudson." "When?" "Tomorrow." Eric Hudson had kind eyes and a scar on his cheek. Mid-40s. Wore corduroy and carried a leather satchel that looked older than both of us. He met me in a supply closet. I handed him the ticket, the printout, the POA document Amber had signed without my consent. He read it all carefully. Didn't interrupt. Didn't blink. "I want to disappear," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "You want to fake your death?" "No. I want to stop being theirs." He nodded slowly. "Then we do this smart. First, we claim the winnings anonymously, through a blind trust. Then we create a new will. A new ID. A P.O. box. A safe address. You'll need a prepaid phone, a burner email, and a contact protocol." He said protocol like this was a spy mission. Maybe it was. I'll need 2 weeks, he said. You have one, I replied. We worked at night. In the same supply closet. Eric brought forms, burner phones, documents that needed only initials. Layla kept watch. She covered for me during wellness checks. Once, she forged a medication log so I could leave my room during a restricted hour. The trust was established under a name I chose, Marigold James. My mother's middle name. My father's first. The will was rewritten to exclude Amber and Tyler entirely. I left my real name only to a local animal shelter. I packed one duffel bag, one pair of shoes, 3 changes of clothes. I carried the ticket in a fireproof envelope taped to my back. On the morning of my escape, Layla left the staff door unlocked during a shift change. At 5:14 a.m., I walked out of Cedar Grove in a donated coat and a nurse's beanie. They thought I was frail. They thought I was broken. They thought they had won. They were wrong. The bus rolled north like a slow heartbeat, every mile another layer of my old life peeling away. I sat by the window in silence, dressed in a coat too big for me, with a duffel bag at my feet and a prepaid flip phone that hadn't rung once. Nobody knew my name now. Not on this bus. Not in this town. Not even legally in the world. Marigold James. I whispered it under my breath like a spell. Eric had arranged everything. A modest property under the name of the trust. A 1-story house outside Billings, Montana. Brick with a sagging porch and chipped white shutters. The mailbox leaned like it had given up asking for help. But it had a roof. Hot water. Heat. A door I could lock from the inside. A bed that didn't come with a wristband or a nurse calling me hon. When the cab dropped me off, the driver looked me over and asked, "You sure someone's home?" "I'm sure," I said. The house smelled like dust and silence. No pictures on the walls. No hum of television or voices behind doors. Just space. Empty and echoing. And mine. I took inventory like a woman checking for bruises. Kitchen. Functional. Bathroom. Cold tile, working pipes. Bedroom. Single mattress, 1 window, thin curtain. I put the fireproof envelope under a loose floorboard, the ticket, the trust documents, the new will, and a letter labeled, just in case. Outside, the world was snowing softly. Quiet and unassuming. I watched it through the window and felt the panic recede slowly, like a fever breaking. But freedom doesn't taste sweet. It tastes like metal. Like blood and coins and silence too long held in the mouth. Like the aftertaste of survival. I went online using the ancient desktop Eric had left me. No browser history. No saved passwords. I searched one thing. Amber Jones' missing mother. The top result was a fundraiser. Help us find Nancy Bell. Our sweet mother went missing from Cedar Grove last week. We're devastated. Please donate to support our search. There was a picture. Me, 5 years younger, holding a pie. I had flour on my nose. Tyler must have taken it. Amber had cropped out the kitchen, cropped out the life that built her. I scrolled down. Comments. Praying for her safe return. She's lucky to have a daughter like you. I donated. Hope you find her. Over $2,000 raised. I laughed so hard I scared myself. She was fundraising off the mother she warehoused. Turning my disappearance into sympathy points. I should have been furious. I should have felt betrayed all over again. But I didn't. What I felt was cleaner than anger. Clarity. Amber wasn't grieving. She was marketing. The missing mother narrative. The poor daughter left behind. Her posts were choreographed, tears, throwback photos, clips of old birthday videos. She edited them for maximum nostalgia. Meanwhile, I was eating canned soup in a drafty house, checking the locks twice before I slept. Every so often, I'd see a shadow pass by the window, a deer, a bird, sometimes just wind in the trees. But it made me jump. Made me check the floorboard again. The weight of the envelope. The proof that I existed. The proof that I was done letting them define what existing meant. I didn't go into town much. I learned to make lists and consolidate. I paid in cash. I wore a hat pulled low. No eye contact. Just another old woman with a cough and a cane she didn't need. But I watched. I read the news. I followed Amber's accounts from a burner profile. I tracked what people said. One post in particular stuck with me. She wrote, "My mom struggled for years. Sometimes she forgot names, left the stove on, wandered outside. We had no choice." It had 3,000 likes. A video montage followed, clips of me gardening, baking, laughing. No mention of how she took my phone. No footage of the locked room or the camera she turned off when I cried. She was rewriting me. I was being turned into a character. A cautionary tale. A prop in her tragic influencer arc. That's when I started documenting. Every receipt, every grocery run, every email with Eric. I logged the date and time I watched the local news. The books I read. My weight, blood pressure, sleep cycles. I kept records the way a prisoner marks time, proof of awareness, of presence, of lucidity. I called it my sanity file. One day, while sorting old papers, I found a dusty notebook. I opened to the first blank page and wrote, "I am not gone. I am watching." Weeks passed. Then an envelope arrived. No return address. Cream-colored paper. Too thick to be ordinary. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet. A loan agreement. Supposedly signed by me and Stuart, my late husband. Dated 2 years ago. Stuart had been dead for 5. My signature looked perfect. Too perfect. The kind of perfection that only comes from copy-paste fraud. I sat down, legs weak. Turned the page. More documents. Financial statements. Bank forms. Notarized declarations. All forged. All with my name. Amber had been using our old catering business, the one we dissolved after Stuart's diagnosis, to secure lines of credit. Some dated as far back as when I was in Cedar Grove. She had been stealing long before she dropped me off. This wasn't neglect. It was theft. Identity theft. Federal fraud. Elder abuse. Eric and I combed through online databases. Court records. IRS complaints. She was under review. Pending audit. We gathered everything. I printed it all, labeled each page with sticky notes. This wasn't family drama. This was crime. With a family face. I placed the files in a locked drawer and stared out the window at the snow. It felt like ash. Quiet. Disguising everything it buried. I was no longer afraid. Now I was waiting. I always thought betrayal would come loud, shouting, slammed doors, confessions through tears. But when it finally sank in, it arrived like dust settling on forgotten furniture. Quiet. Undeniable. Inescapable. Amber didn't just abandon me. She harvested me. What started with power of attorney and controlled meals had grown into full-fledged identity theft. I imagined her hunched over my old paperwork, signing my name like a signature was just another thing she could inherit. Eric and I began cataloging the fraud. We laid it out like an autopsy. Bank statements forged with my maiden signature, the one I hadn't used since 1983. Loan agreements using our old catering business as collateral. She'd revived it quietly after Stuart died, filing a false business renewal and linking it to a separate P.O. box across the city. She'd even faked my driver's license renewal. Scanned an old photo, updated the address to Cedar Grove, and applied for credit cards in my name. Eric ran a deep database scan and found 4 open accounts, all maxed out. Luxury furniture. Flights. Designer bags. I always wondered how she afforded that kitchen remodel, I muttered, my voice flat with realization. Eric said nothing. He just passed me another file. The worst page wasn't financial. It was personal. A notarized affidavit stating I had early-onset dementia and had willingly transferred financial control to Amber. The notary's name was real. The stamp was real. My signature was not. She timed everything, Eric said, flipping pages. The moment she got power of attorney, she backdated this affidavit and started liquidating anything in your name. How long before Cedar Grove? 2 months. Long enough to position herself as your full-time guardian. I closed the file. My hands were trembling. She didn't plan to abandon me, I said slowly. She planned to erase me. Eric nodded grimly. She almost succeeded. We scanned everything. Every forged document. every misused signature. We backed up the evidence 3 times: USB, cloud, encrypted hard drive. I printed 2 physical sets and stored one in a waterproof envelope under the mattress. The other went into a fireproof box hidden behind a false wall panel. My old bones were now paper. Proof I'd lived. Proof I'd been stolen. Late that night, I sat at the small kitchen table with a mug of tea I'd forgotten to drink. Outside, the Montana wind scraped the windows like fingers. I opened an old journal, one I hadn't touched since Stuart's funeral. I flipped past the pages of grief, the worn pages where I scribbled memories of our first kiss, our first fight, the day Amber was born. I turned to the last page and wrote, "She buried me under her ambition. And now I'm digging my way out with the paper trail she left behind." The next morning, I mailed a thick envelope to a post office box in D.C. No return address. Just the Department of Justice. My insurance policy. In the weeks that followed, strange things began to happen. A silver SUV started parking too long outside the house. Not a neighbor. Not a delivery. Once, a utility worker knocked on the door asking if I'd noticed any cable disruptions. He wasn't wearing a uniform. No ID badge. I watched him through the peephole until he left. I changed my routines. Never walked at the same time twice. Switched my grocery store. Moved the envelope from the floorboard to the freezer, then to the crawl space. I wore a hooded coat, cut my hair, changed the way I walked. Fear had become a roommate. But I kept the door locked between us. Then the letter came. No stamp. No address. Just slid under the door. "I know what you did. This isn't over." Typed. Clean font. No fingerprints. I brought it to Eric. He read it once, folded it slowly. "She's scared," he said. "She should be." Days later, I was served. Amber had filed for legal guardianship. In her petition, she claimed I had mental instability, that I had abandoned my known residence, and was refusing essential care. Attached were carefully selected voicemails, recordings of me talking to myself, taken out of context. A psychiatrist's note from someone I'd never met, stating I was paranoid, agitated, and resistant to intervention. There were affidavits from 2 of her friends, women I hadn't seen in years, claiming I had difficulty distinguishing reality and forgot family members' names. It read like a horror novel. I wasn't angry. I was impressed. This wasn't panic. This was war. Eric moved fast. We gathered counters, phone logs, delivery receipts, gas bills, dated photos, video calls with timestamps. I underwent a full evaluation with an independent specialist, Dr. Marisol Vega, sharp, unsentimental, impossible to fool. We spent 3 hours together. She asked me everything from math problems to philosophical hypotheticals. She asked about current events, about the lottery ticket, about Cedar Grove, about Stuart's death. At the end, she smiled and said, "I'll write this up." A week later, Eric handed me her report. I read the first line twice. Cognitively intact. Emotionally grounded. Fully capable of independent living and decision-making. The fog Amber had tried to hang over me was starting to lift. Eric looked at me across the table. "She's trying to get ahead of the DOJ. If she proves you're mentally incompetent, she invalidates any criminal complaint you file. She wants me legally silenced." Exactly. But we have truth on our side. And now we have proof. I stood up slowly, joints aching from the cold. "She tried to bury me with paperwork," I said. "But she forgot something." "What's that?" "I know how to read fine print." It began with paper, as all wars do. The guardianship hearing notice arrived folded like a knife. Official seal. Court date. Amber's name printed neatly under petitioner. My own name reduced to subject. It felt less like an invitation to court and more like a burial summons. I held it over the sink and almost tore it, but Eric stopped me. "We respond. We don't react." He said it quietly, like a mantra. I was learning that survival required precision, not rage. Rage was a luxury for people who still believed someone would listen. That night, I lit one candle in the kitchen and opened a new notebook. On the first page, I wrote, "Step 1. Take back the narrative." Amber had built hers first, concerned daughter, dutiful caregiver, victim of her mother's decline. Every post she made, every interview she gave, dripped with performance. She'd been on local television now. A soft-spoken segment titled "Daughter's Heartbreak, When Parents Vanish." She cried into the camera, spoke about my fragile state, about my confusion. People donated. Churches prayed. I watched it online from the library's public computer, the screen light flickering against my face. The reporter ended with, "If you see Nancy Bell, please contact authorities. She may be disoriented." Disoriented. I'd built a house from scratch in Montana. Filed taxes. Managed accounts. Cooked for myself. If that was disorientation, I wondered what sanity looked like. Eric prepared our counterattack like a chess player. We'll present Dr. Vega's full report, financial statements proving consistent management, and testimony of independent witnesses. Most importantly, he said, sliding a folder toward me, we keep the fraud evidence sealed until the second hearing. Why not use it now? I asked. Because she'll deny everything until she's trapped in her own timeline. Let her talk first. The day before the hearing, I received another letter, this time from a blocked sender. It contained only one line. You can't win if no one believes you. I almost smiled. If she had to send warnings, she was already afraid. The courthouse was beige and cold, the kind of place where lives changed quietly. Eric and I sat outside room 214 while the bailiff called names. Across the hallway, Amber arrived in a cream suit, hair straightened, eyes damp with rehearsed sorrow. Tyler trailed behind her, wearing a tie like a leash. She looked at me, feigned surprise. Mom? Oh, thank God. I was worried. I didn't answer. Her performance didn't deserve a script partner. Inside, the judge was an older man with calm, deliberate eyes. Mrs. Jones, he said, you're petitioning for guardianship over your mother, correct? Amber nodded, voice trembling. Yes, Your Honor. She's been unwell. She disappears, says people are spying on her. She doesn't recognize family. Eric leaned toward me. Let her talk, he whispered. She's become paranoid, Amber continued, dabbing fake tears. She cut off communication, hid money, and accuses us of theft. We're only trying to help her. Then they played the voicemails. Chopped pieces of my real messages, edited until I sounded unhinged. My voice pleading in one clip, you can't take everything, cut together with laughter from a different call. The audience in the back whispered. Eric rose calmly. Your Honor, defense will present Exhibit B. He handed the clerk a flash drive. The courtroom filled with the sound of Dr. Vega's voice reading her conclusion, cognitively intact, emotionally stable, fully competent. Then came the bank statements, every check signed in my own hand, every date aligning with reality. The judge scanned the pages slowly. Eric stepped forward. Mrs. Jones claims paranoia. Yet here are phone records proving multiple harassing calls from her number to my client. Here are receipts of wire transfers Amber Jones executed using forged authorization. And here, he tapped a document, is proof that my client's address, finances, and medical autonomy have been deliberately manipulated by the petitioner. Amber's lawyer objected. Irrelevant. On the contrary, Eric said, it shows motive. The judge's eyes lifted. Mrs. Bell, would you like to say anything? I stood. My legs trembled, but my voice didn't. She took my phone. My freedom. My dignity. Don't let her take my voice. Silence stretched. The judge exhaled through his nose, tired, weighing truths. I'll review all evidence, he said finally. Temporary guardianship is denied. Case adjourned for review. Amber's jaw locked as we left. She brushed past me in the hallway. You're embarrassing yourself, she hissed. No, I said. Just you. Back in Montana, I waited. I baked bread to quiet my hands. Checked the mailbox twice a day. Every sound outside made me look up, expecting headlights. Then came the news alert. A small article buried deep in a financial section, catering firm under IRS review for false filings. Amber's name appeared once, in parentheses. I printed it, circled the date, and placed it in my sanity file. Eric called that evening. The DOJ packet you sent months ago was opened. They've cross-referenced the evidence. Quietly. Efficiently. So she's being investigated? Yes, he said. And she doesn't know yet. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. But victory was never clean. The next week, a white envelope appeared under my door again. Inside was a photo, me at the grocery store, back turned, unaware. Written across the bottom in thick marker, "You can't hide forever." I showed it to Eric. "She's escalating." He nodded. "Then so do we." He filed a restraining order and requested court protection. We scheduled the next hearing. I spent the night before it sitting on the porch, watching the Montana sky darken into ink. The wind hummed through the pines like distant applause. I thought of Stuart, of the years we'd worked side by side to build something honest, something Amber had twisted into debt and deceit. "She doesn't understand," I whispered to the dark. "I'm not running anymore." The next morning, I packed my files, dressed in black, and looked in the mirror. For the first time in years, the woman looking back didn't flinch. This wasn't survival anymore. It was reclamation. The second hearing began like the first, polished lies on one side, silent truth on the other. But this time, I didn't feel like the defendant. I felt like the detonator. Amber entered in a navy dress, darker than before, with a scarf loosely tied around her neck like she wanted to project softness. Tyler trailed behind her again, holding a briefcase he didn't know how to carry. Their lawyer, Wendell Bryce, looked like he'd been pulled from a high society estate lawsuit. Cufflinks. White pocket square. Smug confidence carved into his cheekbones. Eric and I sat at the opposite table. Our side was quieter, but heavier. I had documents layered in chronological precision. A sealed envelope marked Exhibit C waited at the bottom of my folder like a loaded weapon. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The court clerk read the docket aloud. Case number 7213. Petition for permanent guardianship. Petitioner, Amber Jones. Respondent, Nancy Bell. This time, Amber didn't cry. She let Bryce do the bleeding for her. "Your Honor," he began, "we submit updated medical affidavits, new witness testimonies, and psychiatric evaluations confirming our belief that Mrs. Bell is unfit to manage her affairs." He spoke with the smooth arrogance of a man used to bending facts like spoons. The screen lit up behind him as he clicked through a slideshow. Photos of me looking tired. Surveillance stills from the grocery store, where I appeared hunched under my coat. A blurry image from the bus stop. Out-of-context clips pulled from my social media burner account, twisted into a pattern of instability. "Your Honor," Bryce said, turning solemn, "this is a woman who disappeared without notice. Who refuses contact with her family. Who believes her daughter is attempting to harm her." He paused for emphasis. "We fear she is being manipulated by outside forces." I knew what he meant. Eric. Me. Freedom. Manipulation, in Amber's script, meant anything she didn't orchestrate. When it was Eric's turn, he rose slowly, as if he knew the ground beneath him was already theirs. "Your Honor," he said, voice calm but sharp, "we present certified documentation of Mrs. Bell's current residence, banking activity, independent medical evaluations, and proof of rational, consistent behavior." He passed up a binder to the judge. But more importantly, Eric added, "We submit Exhibit D, an IRS public record naming the petitioner, Amber Jones, in an ongoing federal investigation into fraudulent filings linked to a defunct catering LLC formerly owned by the respondent and her late husband." Bryce's chair creaked. Amber didn't move. Not yet. The judge lifted the paper, scanned it, and raised an eyebrow. Eric continued, "This investigation predates the guardianship petition by 6 weeks, suggesting motive to control the respondent's finances before the DOJ can establish criminal liability." Bryce objected. "Irrelevant to her current mental health." On the contrary, Eric countered. "It explains the sudden urgency to strip her autonomy." The judge waved the objection off. "Continue." Then Dr. Vega was called to the stand. She testified calmly, clinically. "Mrs. Bell is lucid, emotionally regulated, and fully oriented. Her memory, reasoning, and executive functioning are consistent with a healthy adult. Is there any medical reason to assign guardianship? Eric asked. None whatsoever. Thank you, doctor. Amber whispered something to her lawyer. Her knee bounced. Tyler stared at the floor. Then I was called. I stood slowly, each step deliberate. Not frail. Not fragile. Just a woman made of decisions. Eric guided me through the testimony. I answered clearly, firmly. I explained my escape from Cedar Grove. The conditions. The silencing. The phone confiscation. The digital erasure. Then I said, she didn't put me there to protect me. She put me there to forget me. The room held its breath. Eric handed me a page. Can you read what this says? He asked. I took it. Read aloud. Power of attorney filed March 3rd, signed under duress, while respondent was under medical sedation following minor surgery. The judge blinked. Eric spoke carefully. Mrs. Bell, is it true your daughter administered your medications at home prior to this filing? I nodded. She said it was just to help me sleep. Amber shot up. Objection. That's not, she's twisting things. The judge gestured her down. You'll have your turn. Eric then walked to the judge with a sealed folder. Final exhibit, Your Honor. Unsealed per instruction. Inside was a notarized letter from Layla, the nurse from Cedar Grove. It read, Eyewitness Nancy Bell in full cognitive capacity. She expressed fear of being confined against her will. I referred her to legal aid and assisted in her exit based on her consistent mental clarity. Who is this? Bryce snapped. A registered nurse on the premises, Eric replied. She has no financial stake. Just integrity. Then came Amber's testimony. She cried this time. But not for sympathy. For herself. She's my mother, she said, voice cracking. She doesn't know what she's saying. She thinks everyone is against her. I tried to help. She looked directly at me. I gave up everything for you. I stared back. You gave up nothing. You stole. The judge called for a recess. 20 minutes. I stood in the hallway staring at the vending machine, remembering how Amber once cried over a stuck candy bar when she was 8. I bought her another one, then rocked her until she fell asleep. She was never gentle again. When court resumed, the judge returned with a calm face and a stack of papers. I've reviewed all evidence, he began. And while it is clear this family has suffered great strain, it is also clear that Mrs. Bell is not suffering from cognitive impairment. Amber flinched. Furthermore, he added, the financial documentation provided raises significant ethical and legal concerns regarding the petitioner's conduct. He looked directly at her. The guardianship petition is denied with prejudice. Mrs. Bell's autonomy is fully reinstated. The gavel came down like thunder. Amber gasped. Tyler rubbed his temple. As the courtroom emptied, I approached her. Quietly. Not for drama, but for history. I'm the woman who sold her wedding ring to pay her tuition, I said. Amber's eyes shimmered with rage and something close to shame. And you, I whispered, left me in a care facility and called it love. She didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. After the hearing, I walked outside into Montana wind that bit like teeth. Sharp, clean, honest. The courthouse steps felt steeper than before. Every joint ached, but every step felt earned. Eric and I didn't speak until we reached his car. You won, he said. No, I replied. I survived. There's a difference. Back home, the silence wasn't comforting. It buzzed, electric with unfinished business. My freedom had been restored legally, but Amber wasn't done. She didn't believe in defeat, only delay. The next morning, I logged into the burner account and scrolled through Amber's social media. She'd posted a photo of herself looking grief-stricken, kneeling at the foot of an old church, the caption. Sometimes you lose your mother twice. Please pray for clarity and healing. #forgiveness, #mental health. The comments were sympathetic. Heart emojis. Scripture quotes. People telling her she was so strong. She had turned her courtroom failure into more content. The photo got over 4,000 likes. I sat there, the glow of the screen lighting my face in the dim kitchen. It wasn't sadness I felt. It wasn't anger either. It was something harder. A bone-deep chill of knowing that this woman, my daughter, was still trying to harvest sympathy from the wounds she inflicted. A day later, she went further. She gave an interview to a podcast called Modern Martyrs, Caregivers in Crisis. I listened through headphones alone, writing down her lies line by line. She was always distant, Amber said. She made us earn affection. When she started accusing us of theft, I knew we had to step in. The host responded softly, "It's so hard when the parent becomes the child." Amber sniffled. We just wanted to keep her safe. The host ended the episode with a pitch for Amber's GoFundMe. They'd raised over $6,800. I stared at the donation list. Names I recognized from church. From old holiday cards. People who hadn't called me in years. They believed her. I opened my email and typed a single message to a journalist I'd once known in Boise. Her name was Clara. She'd covered our catering business during its best years. The subject line, "I'm the missing mother." Attached, scanned evidence of the forged POA, the catering LLC fraud, the notarized affidavit, Layla's letter, and the DOJ case number. I also included a link to Amber's podcast. I hit send and felt nothing. Just air leaving the lungs. 3 days later, Clara called. "I remember you," she said. "You used to bring pie to interviews." "I still do," I said. "Now I just don't give it to liars." She laughed softly. Then she got serious. "I want to tell this story. No clickbait. No victim porn," I said. "You tell the whole thing or you tell nothing." She agreed. 2 weeks later, the article ran in a Sunday spread. Erased. How one woman fought back after her daughter declared her incompetent. The photo was black and white. Me, sitting on my porch in Montana, arms crossed. The caption, "She took everything but the truth." It went viral. Not influencer viral. Righteous viral. People reposted it with captions like, "Protect your elders" and "Guardianship abuse is real." Amber's comments turned sour. Fast. "Is this about you? Where's the money? Did you really forge her name?" She deleted the podcast link. Took down the donation page. But it was too late. The DOJ sent a letter, an official notice of investigation into wire fraud, identity theft, and abuse of power of attorney. They were building a case. Slowly. Precisely. In the meantime, Amber tried to pivot. She posted old baby photos, tried to center her image as a wounded daughter. But sympathy had curdled. And the silence from her usual supporters was deafening. Eric and I met to draft a civil suit. "We sue for emotional damages," he said. "For misappropriation of funds, defamation, and the unlawful filing of guardianship." I nodded. "Make sure to include the GoFundMe money. Every penny." The lawsuit was filed quietly. But word got out. Amber's face, once smiling in soft-lit selfies, was now screenshot in articles next to phrases like "investigation pending" and "exploitation of a vulnerable adult." I didn't gloat. I documented. Every article. Every podcast takedown. Every deleted post. I saved them like layers of insulation between me and the woman who once called me mom. Tyler filed for divorce 2 months later. The court documents were leaked. He cited irreconcilable deceit. Claimed she forged his signature on multiple documents. Claimed she manipulated their joint accounts. Amber tried to post a response video. It lasted 6 minutes before she started crying. Nobody offered comfort in the comments this time. Someone wrote, "Should have thought about that before you stole your mom's life." That one stayed up longer than the others. I printed it, folded it neatly, placed it in the sanity file. Then came the biggest turn. The Department of Justice issued a formal subpoena. Amber Jones. Defendant. 8 counts. Including fraudulent use of power of attorney, identity theft, financial abuse of a dependent elder, obstruction of justice, misrepresentation for monetary gain. Eric called me after it hit the press. "She's facing real prison time now," he said. Years. I didn't answer right away. I was watching the snow fall again. Always the snow. "She'll still say I did this to her," I whispered. "She can say whatever she wants," he replied. "Nobody's listening anymore." Later that week, I returned to Cedar Grove. Not as a resident. As a speaker. Layla met me at the front desk, eyes wide. She didn't recognize me at first. Then she hugged me so hard I almost cried. "You made it out," she whispered. "I made it back," I corrected. The director had invited me to speak to the staff. I stood in the same cafeteria where Amber once mocked my mashed potatoes and said I cooked like it was the 90s. Now I was standing behind the microphone. 3 years ago, I began. Someone brought me here not to help me, but to hide me. The room stilled. I'm not the only one. There are more of us than you think. I told them about the silent abuses, the locked phones, the power of attorney papers signed under sedation, the way love can be turned into a leash. I ended with this. You are not burdens. You are not broken. You are not done. Applause followed, slow and uncertain at first. Then strong. Layla took a photo of me at the podium. Later, she texted it with a single caption, "Full circle." I saved it, printed it, placed it in the file. Amber eventually accepted a plea deal. 8 years. Reduced to 5 with probation. They didn't offer restitution. But I didn't care. I'd already taken back something far more valuable. My voice. On the first snow of January, I wrote myself a letter. Just one sentence. You weren't weak. You just loved. And when they tried to write you out, you picked up the pen. The day Amber went to prison, I baked a pie. Apple. Extra cinnamon. Lattice crust, browned just right. I didn't do it to celebrate. I did it to remember who I was before she tried to erase me. A woman who fed others. Who made things with her hands. Who believed love was given, not traded. I set the pie on the windowsill and let the cold air sweep through the kitchen. Snow fell thick that morning, covering everything like a fresh layer of denial. The newspaper headline was blunt. Boise woman sentenced in elder fraud case. Below it, Amber's photo. Not the influencer shot, the mug shot. No filters, no ring lights. Just a plain wall, a flat expression, and the eyes of a woman who finally understood she couldn't curate her way out of consequence. 8 years. 5 with good behavior. The courtroom had been quiet. I didn't attend. I'd already had my day. But Eric went. He called afterward. She didn't cry, he said. Just stared straight ahead. Her lawyer tried for leniency. The judge didn't blink. Did she say my name? I asked. No, he said. Not once. That was fitting. Even at the end, she pretended I didn't exist. 2 days later, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name, written in a handwriting I knew too well. I opened it slowly. Inside was a photo. Amber and me. My 60th birthday. She'd smashed cake on my face, laughing. I'd laughed too. Not because it was funny, because it was expected. Behind us, balloons spelled out Queen Mom. On the back of the photo, in her tight script. You always believed in me. Sorry that wasn't enough. I didn't cry. I burned it. The flames ate the apology without ceremony. Grief had already passed. What remained was post-mortem peace. I could have destroyed everything she left behind, the videos, the old clothes, the journals with her name scrawled in hearts. But I didn't. I packed them neatly in a box labeled archive. Not to honor her, but to remind myself that I survived her. People asked me later if I forgave her. I always gave the same answer. You don't forgive someone who tried to make you disappear. You just outlive them. The civil suit wrapped quietly. I recovered some of the stolen money, not all. Enough to make it symbolic. I used part of the settlement to launch something new, the Nancy Project. A legal fund for seniors facing guardianship abuse. A helpline. A database of lawyers like Eric. Nurses like Layla. A network of survivors who'd all been told they were confused, fragile burdens. We weren't any of those things. We were witnesses. Every month, new names poured in. Women who'd signed papers without reading. Men whose bank accounts had been drained by smiling children. Grandparents whose homes had been sold for their own good. We connected them, defended them, documented them. One story at a time, we reclaimed the narrative. Clara, the journalist, kept in touch. She wrote a follow-up piece 6 months later. They tried to bury her. She built a platform instead. It got picked up nationally. I was invited to speak at conferences, on panels, at advocacy forums. I declined most. I didn't need a stage. I'd already been a prop in someone else's show. But I agreed to one. At a courthouse in Boise. The same one where Amber once tried to take my voice. I stood at the podium, gray hair pulled back, hands steady. "I'm not a victim," I said. "I'm a warning." I told them what guardianship really means when it's misused. How power of attorney can be a weapon in the wrong hands. How the language of concern, confused, fragile, unsafe, is often code for inconvenient. I ended with this. Be wary of those who offer help with one hand and take with the other. And if someone ever tries to silence you, speak louder. Speak through the walls. Through courtrooms. Through the very documents they used against you. Paper cuts both ways. The applause was brief. But it was real. Afterward, an older woman approached me with trembling fingers. She clutched my arm and whispered, "My son did the same." I thought I was the only one. I shook my head. "You're never the only one. That's just what they want you to think." On the 1-year anniversary of my escape, I returned to the courthouse, alone this time. Not for a hearing. Just to walk the halls. The bench where I once sat, heart pounding, was still there. The water fountain still dripped. But I wasn't the same. I was a woman with locked doors, a fireproof safe, and a name no one could forge anymore. At the exit, I saw a young woman arguing with her mother. The daughter rolled her eyes and said loudly, "You always make things harder." The mother didn't respond. I wanted to say something, but I didn't. Some truths have to be learned the way I did, the hard way. When I got home, the house smelled like bread again. Daniel had stopped by. My son. My only son. The one Amber had once called a passive coward. But she'd underestimated him. After everything, he chose me. Chose honesty. Chose silence when it was respectful, and words when they were necessary. He never apologized for what Amber did. But one day, he said, "She thought you were weak." I never did. That was enough. That was more than enough. We never spoke about her again. The town moved on. Eventually, so did the news cycle. But in corners of the internet, in quiet forums and message boards, the Nancy Project kept growing. People passed the story along. Shared their own. They told me, it gave me courage. They said, it saved my life. And I believed them. Because in saving myself, I had given others permission to stop shrinking. Amber will get out in a few years. She'll walk free again. But she'll never be unburdened. She'll carry my name like a ghost chained to her ankle, not because I haunt her, but because she buried a woman who walked out of her own grave. One afternoon, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a single object. A broken wristwatch. The one Amber had given me years ago, engraved on the back. "Time is ours." I turned it over. New engraving scratched into the metal, messy and unfinished. "You were never meant to be still." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I placed it in the archive box, closed the lid, and slid it back under the bed. At sunset, I sat on the porch and wrote one final letter in the last page of the sanity file. In the end, they tried to make me small. But I built a legacy in the space they cleared for my grave. And I ask you now, the one reading this. If they tried to take your voice, would you whisper? Or would you roar?